Everyone, Happy New Year and thank you so much for joining today's class. So today is a summary of chapters 1 to 5 with our guest speaker, Nitai. So Nitai has been practicing Bhakti Yoga for many years. He joined Soho Temple and eventually became a resident brahmachari, after which he met his lovely wife, Bhava Bhakti. He served as the temple president at Soho for over 14 years. He's a disciple of His Grace Radhanath Swami. He's a mentor, a coach, a guide at the manor, and he's recently taken on a senior role at the manor for devotee care project because the community is ever growing and in need of that support. He's also a musician and plays the bass guitar. Okay, Nitai, over to you, Prabhu. Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna, everyone. Thank you so much, Rohana, for your wonderful introduction and very kind words. It is my great honor and privilege to be here with all of you this evening. I thank you very much for taking your valuable time to join us, to hear from the Srimad Bhagavatam and discuss. I'd also like to thank Raj Mukunda Prabhu, although I don't think he's on the call, for initiating this wonderful project for learning the Bhagavatam. And yeah, I just feel very honored to be here with all of you. So thank you very much. I was given the monumental task of summarizing 5 chapters of the Srimad Bhagavatam in 1 hour. so I think putting that into context, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur spoke for 30 days in a row on one Srimad Bhagavatam verse without even repeating himself in any way. So, and he was doing that for at least an hour each day. So for me to cover five chapters is going to be quite a challenge, but I like challenges. So I'll probably be moving a little bit quick and we'll skip many details, but have tried to highlight a few very important points that I felt were significant. And of course, if I'm understanding correctly, you can please correct me if I've misunderstood, but all of you have already covered all of these chapters once, and this is just a summary and a review. Is that correct? Yep. Yes? Okay. Yep. All right, so if you will bear with me, I will share my screen, and I would also request we can chant the Mangalacharanam prayers before beginning. So you all just please bear with me 1 moment. Okay. Can everyone see my screen? Is that okay, Rahana or Prabhuji? Yes, okay. Okay, so we're going to chant the Mangalacharanam prayers first. Srila Prabhupada encouraged us to chant these prayers before we begin anything, and he explained that by chanting these prayers, Krishna, if we chant them sincerely, Krishna, who is in our heart, he will hear us and he will help us. So therefore it behooves us to chant these prayers before we begin any activity and to try to put ourselves in the right consciousness so that Krishna will help us like that. So if you know the prayers, please chant along. If not, you can meditate on the transcendental sound vibration. Om Gyanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurumilitangena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manubhishtam Stapitam Gena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kudamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Gurun Shri Yuta Parakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan tam sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakanvitamscha He Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gourange Radhe Vrindavanishwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi
Devi
Pranamami Hari Priya
Hari Priye
Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri
Shri
Advaita
Advaita
Gadadhara
Gadadhara
Shivasa
Shivasari
Bhakta Vrinda
Bhaktavinda
Hare
Hare Krishna
Hare Krishna
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 Krishna Krishna
Hare Hare
Hare
Hare
Hare Rama
Hare Rama
Rama
Rama Rama
Rama Rama
Hare
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 Jai Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai
Jai
Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda.
Jai.
So Hare Krishna everyone, it is a great honor and privilege to be here with all of you, and we're going to cover the first 5 chapters of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Some of you may be familiar. My wife and I are regular readers of the Bhagavatam. We have a YouTube channel called Bhagavatam Bites, and we read almost every day on there, and at least 3 times a week. These sessions go out. We started during lockdown in May 2020, and we're just about to finish the 3rd canto. We read for about 20 minutes and we discuss. So lots of people have joined over the years, and it's very nice. So just to invite you, but we love to read and discuss Bhagavatam. So everybody can strap in, put your seatbelts on, pull down your braces, because we're about to take off and enter into the Srimad Bhagavatam. I'm not sure if you all covered the foreword, the preface, and the introduction. Most likely you didn't, because the introduction is almost like a book unto itself. But I strongly encourage you to read the introduction also. Sketches of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the life history. This is very valuable, very important. You can do that in your spare time. I'm just going to give a little synopsis from the foreword of the Srimad Bhagavatam, which I feel really helps to set the scene. And I also strongly encourage you to read this. Many times the preface, the foreword, and the introductions in Srila Prabhupada's books have really, really potent messages that are just given in a certain way in these short bursts. So I really encourage also reading those. So we're going to, this foreword is written by the publishers, which is the BBT. And, oops, how do I go back? Let me see. There we go. So we'll start with this. This is a verse from the section that we're reading. This Bhagavad Purana is as brilliant as the sun, and it has arisen just after the departure of Lord Krishna to his own abode, accompanied by religion, knowledge, etc. Persons who have lost their vision due to the dense darkness of ignorance in the age of Kali shall get light from this Purana. So this Bhagavad Purana, this Srimad Bhagavatam, this beautiful, beautiful verse is also an inspiration for His Grace Krishna Dharma Prabhu and his wife Chintamani Dam Mataji, who have created a series of books called Brilliant as the Sun. And these are synopsis or story form of the Bhagavatam, and I cannot encourage or endorse them enough. So I would like to recommend everyone to please look those up. They're also available on iBooks and Kindle or in hard copy. They're called Brilliant as the Sun by Krishna Dharma, and I just spoke with him yesterday, and I think he said they're up to now maybe the 9th canto. So really, really beautiful. Okay, so the foreword of the Srimad Bhagavatam in the first canto starts with a history of the Vedas and the timeless wisdom of India and how it's expressed in the Vedas, which is an ancient Sanskrit language, and it touches upon all fields of human knowledge. It was originally preserved through an oral tradition, means it was originally spoken, not written. And the Vedas were first put into writing about 5,000 years ago by Srila Vyasadeva, who is known as the literary incarnation of God. So after compiling the Vedas, Srila Vyasadeva set forth the essence of the Vedas into aphorisms, which were known as the Vedanta Sutras. Sutra means almost like a shortened version. It's like when people say, let's unpack this. He created sutras, which are the packed aphorisms. And the Srimad Bhagavatam, or the Bhagavat Purana, is actually Srila Vyasadeva's personal commentary on the Vedanta Sutras. So it's very potent. And Srila Vyasadeva and Narada Muni, everyone is usually familiar with these two personalities. Narada Muni is actually the spiritual master of Srila Vyasadeva. And the Srimad Bhagavatam was written in Srila Vyasadeva's maturity and of his spiritual life. And it was written under the direction of Srila Narada Muni, who is his guru. It's referred to as the ripened fruit of the tree of Vedic literature. And the Srimad Bhagavatam is the most complete and authoritative exposition of Vedic knowledge that we have available. So, Vedascha sarver aham eva vedyo vedanta krid veda vid eva chaham. Krishna explains in the Bhagavad Gita that he is the source of the Vedas, he is the knower of the Vedas, he is the compiler of the Vedas. So he is actually the goal of all Vedic knowledge, and the Srimad Bhagavatam is the essence of all that Vedic knowledge in one place. So after compiling the Bhagavatam, Srila Vyasadeva, he shared a synopsis of it with his son, who is the great sage Shukadeva Goswami, who became famous as the speaker of the Srimad Bhagavatam. And subsequently, Shukadeva Goswami recited the entire Bhagavatam to Maharaj Parikshit in an assembly of learned saints on the bank of the Ganges in Hastinapur, now known as Delhi. Maharaj Parikshit was the emperor of the world, and he was a great Rajarishi, a saintly king. And he was cursed to die within 1 week, and therefore he immediately renounced his kingdom and he retired to the bank of the Ganges to fast until death and receive spiritual enlightenment. And the Bhagavatam begins with Emperor Parikshit's sober inquiry to Shukadeva Goswami. But really this inquiry directly doesn't happen until the beginning of the second canto. The first time that Shukadeva Goswami actually speaks is in the second canto, at the very beginning of the second canto. But this inquiry, or the Bhagavatam, in essence, you could say, starts with this, that Parikshit Maharaj says, "You are the spiritual master of great saints and devotees, and I'm therefore begging you to show the way of perfection for everyone, especially for someone who is about to die, someone who's about to leave their body. Please let me know what a person should hear, what a person should chant, what they should remember, how they should worship, and also what they should do and not do." And he requests him, please, I beg you to explain all of this to me. And you can imagine his sincerity at that point, knowing that he simply has 7 days to live, and he's given up everything, completely renounced his kingdom in order to become spiritually enlightened. And he's feeling that Shukadeva Goswami is that personality who can give him this knowledge. Now, the Bhagavatam actually opens and begins, as we'll discuss in a moment, with dialogues between Sutta Goswami and the sages of Naimisharanya. Now, if you're anything like me, when I first started reading the Bhagavatam, by the end of the first 3 or 4 pages, I was completely lost with all the different names. This person, Sutta Goswami, Sukadeva Goswami, Vyasadeva, Vasudeva, like so many names, and you just think, who is who? And so just like I said, hang on to your seats. We'll try to keep going through it. The more that you read, the more it makes sense, and the more that you hear, the more that you understand. And I'm sure many of you are already very advanced and you already know all these things, so please forgive me if I'm speaking from a basic perspective. So Shukadeva Goswami, he answers the questions and numerous other questions that are posed by Maharaj Parikshit. Concerning everything from the nature of the self to the origin of the universe. And he holds the assembly of sages in rapt attention continuously for 7 days. Now, we're only speaking for an hour, but imagine if we were all just going to be here for 7 days, that's it. No eating, no sleeping, maybe a bathroom break every now and again, and just 7 days of pure kata. So basically, that went up until Parikshit Maharaj's passing, until he left this world. The sage Sutta Goswami, he was personally present in the assembly where Shukadeva Goswami first recited the Bhagavatam. So later, Sutta Goswami, he repeated this Bhagavatam before a gathering of sages in a forest known as Naimisharanya, which still exists in North India. Some of you may have been there. It's considered the spiritual hub of the universe. And those sages, they were so concerned about the spiritual welfare of the people in the world because Kali Yuga had started or was coming. And they had gathered together in order to perform a continuous and very long sacrifice, performing homas and fire yagas in order to counteract the degrading influence of the age that we're living in, which is Kali Yuga. So in response to the sage's request, he spoke the essence of Vedic wisdom. Sutta Goswami repeated from memory what he had heard over the course of 7 days, and he enlightened the entire 18,000 verses of Srimad Bhagavatam, as spoken by Shukadeva Goswami to Maharaj Parikshit. So Sutta Goswami is quite an amazing personality. We won't get so much into his history, but it is explained in these first chapters of the Bhagavatam. Another thing to remember is that the Bhagavatam, here's Sutta Goswami relating questions from Maharaj Parikshit and the answers that Shukadeva Goswami gave. Sutta Goswami sometimes responds directly to the questions put to him by Shaunaka Rishi, who was the representative from the sages of Naimisharanya. And therefore, simultaneously, we often will hear 2 dialogues going on in the Bhagavatam, one between Parikshit and Shukadev, and one between Sutta Goswami and Shaunaka Rishi, who are there in the forest of Naimisharanya. Furthermore, while instructing Parikshit Maharaj, Shukadev often relates historical episodes of conversations and lengthy philosophical discussions that happened between different sages, sadhus at different points in times, such as Narada Muni and Vyasadeva, and so many others. So we have to understand that actually the Bhagavatam, if you read it from beginning to end, it is not chronological. It jumps around all over the place. And sometimes you'll be in the middle of a chapter, in the middle of the Bhagavatam, and you'll be like, who is speaking here? Because it's a conversation that Sutta Goswami is conveying to Shaunaka Rishi of what Shukadev Goswami said to Parikshit Maharaj, and he may be talking about something that Narada Muni said to some great king somewhere, and they'll be talking about a conversation inside of that. So it can be very, very challenging. But you just have to keep trying to understand not only the philosophical points, but just absorb ourselves in the teachings and the dialogue that are being conveyed. And Srila Prabhupada explained that the Bhagavatam is like sugar candy. And he said that wherever you bite into it, wherever you taste it, you'll find it equally sweet and relishable. Therefore, to taste the sweetness of the Bhagavatam, he said you can begin reading it anywhere, in any of its volumes. But Srila Prabhupada very much encourages that after some introductory taste, you should go back to the beginning of the Bhagavatam, and it must be read from the first canto systematically all the way through to the 12th canto. And Srila Prabhupada, he gives us the assurance in the introduction that if you read the Bhagavatam from the first canto up to the 9th canto, he says you will be sufficiently God realized in order to enter into the 10th canto so that you can enter directly into the Leela and the pastimes of Lord Sri Krishna and Srimati Radharani. And you will become eligible to enter into that spiritual world, which is Goloka Vrindavan. So we can rest assured that if we take this Ashirvad, this blessing seriously from Srila Prabhupada, then it will happen. So now we'll start. And I think we've already spent 21 minutes. So now the actual summary. So there is a study guide called the Bhagavat Subodhini, written by, I think it's Gauranga Darshan Prabhu, but I could be wrong. But basically from the Govardhan Eco Village outside of Mumbai, they created these. And it's a wonderful study guide to get into all the details. For simplicity, their study guide breaks this first canto down into two parts, part A, part B. The first part A is chapters 1 to 3, and part B is chapters 4 through 19. So we're going to follow that same pattern just for simplicity, but of course we'll stop at chapter 5. So part A, chapters 1 through 3, it starts with the 6 questions from the sages of Naimisharanya. So these 6 questions are very important because this is the premise really and the foundation of the entire book and why so many different aspects of what's going on are covered. So we're just going to look very quickly and briefly at these 6 questions. I've given a series of lectures at different times on just these 6 questions, but we're just going to look at them. And it basically covers more or less the first 3 chapters and helps us to understand the premise of the conversation of the Bhagavatam. So the 6 questions, these are sutras or shortened abbreviations from the actual dialogue, or extracted from the dialogue. So the first one is, what is the highest good? What is the best thing that we can do? And that's first canto, chapter 1, text 9. The second question asked by the sages to Sutta Goswami is, what is the essence of all the scriptures? In Kali Yuga, men have but short lives, and they will not be able to read all of these scriptures. So please, what is the essence? I know sometimes, many years ago, I was feeling that, will I ever get through all of Srila Prabhupada's books? Will I even ever get through the entire Srimad Bhagavatam? But now I think I'm on my third time through the Bhagavatam, and by the mercy of the devotees, we started a group which reads just 4 pages a day of different of Srila Prabhupada's books. And over the last 3 years, we've managed to read probably about 20 or more of Srila Prabhupada's books, just 4 pages a day. So it's really wonderful. What is the essence? What is the purpose of Sri Krishna's appearance in this world? They want to know about the Purusha avatars. They want to know about the Leela avatars. They want to know, where did religion take shelter after Krishna left this world? So these are very powerful questions. And of course, you can understand the mind of a person by the questions that he asks. So you can see that these sages, they are already very learned, and they probably know the answer to many of these questions, but those who are very learned, they never tire of hearing the nectar churned again and again and again. In actual fact, it becomes more tasty, more relishable the more that you hear it. So the 6 answers are as follows. What is the highest good? And the answer that's given initially is that we must develop love of God through the process of bhakti yoga, through the process of devotional service. This is the highest good. And what is the essence of all scriptures? The essence of all scriptures is bhakti. It's devotional service. And that's is explained in its entirety in chapter 2 of the first canto. What is the purpose of Krishna's appearance? To reclaim those persons who are in pure goodness, to reclaim the devotees. So we'll look at these first 3 a little bit. So the first answer is to develop love of God through bhakti, and this is covered in the first canto, chapter 2, 6 through 7. So these verses are very famous. Usually I would open the Bhagavatam, we would read the verses together. We're not going to do this, but the basic translation of chapter 6 is that it clearly states that the highest dharma, the highest spiritual practice or nature of the living entity of the soul is bhakti. It's naturally that we are servants. Jivara Swaropoi Krishnara Nichadas. We are servants of Krishna. And what are the qualities of this bhakti? That it must be unmotivated and it must be uninterrupted. It must mean that our only motivation is simply to serve Krishna, and we do it continuously. We never stop, no matter what the impediments are. And what will the result be? That we will become completely satisfied. We will hanker no more, and we will lament no more. Text 7 says, further on, what are the results? We also achieve causeless knowledge and detachment, gyan and vairagya. So I suggest reading the purports to these chapters in your own time. They're just splendid, so amazing. So please dive into those. Then the next question is, what is the essence of all scriptures? And that's explained in the 2nd chapter of the first canto. And this chapter it's just famous. It's called Divinity and Divine Service. And it is one of the most powerful chapters in the Srimad Bhagavatam. It has all of the essence of all the scriptures condensed into it. So I strongly encourage to read that, memorize and learn the shlokas like that. So it's just such a fundamental chapter. I'm going to try to give a little bit of a summary of that chapter here because it's so good. This is some summary quotes from Burijan Prabhu, who is famous for his own Bhagavatam study guide and his Bhagavad Gita study guide. So the first 4 verses of that explain that since by hearing the Bhagavatam from a pure devotee or spiritual master, the modes of passion and ignorance, they slacken, and one will develop his eternal ras or form with Krishna. So therefore, why should we think about anything other than serving Krishna? Because we're going to achieve perfection just simply by hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. To achieve perfection, one should hear the Bhagavatam from a pure devotee and become a pure devotee. And since becoming a pure lover of Krishna is the only source of real satisfaction, we should reject as useless every other activity that isn't directed towards awakening our attraction for Krishna. Realization of our personal relationship with him is really the ultimate goal and the key. So therefore, that should become our prime duty. Every man should therefore take instruction from the scriptures and constantly glorify, remember, and worship Krishna. So this is up to verse 15 of that second chapter. Then, by performing devotional service and hearing the Bhagavatam, great devotees are freed from the modes of passion and ignorance, and gradually they transcend all the modes of nature and progress to live in eternal ras with Krishna. And since everything auspicious can be achieved through pure devotional service, why divert our mind to sense gratification or anything independent of Krishna's service? So we can hear all of these things, but still, when it comes to a day-to-day, we still get distracted by so many other things. But we have to understand the real essence of our life is simply to serve Krishna. And then it explains in the last few verses of this second chapter that to reclaim the misguided conditioned souls, aimlessly seeking happiness in the material world, Krishna enters the world as the super soul within the heart, and he prompts all of us to reawaken our relationship with him. He also incarnates himself and empowers suitable living entities to act on his behalf. So this begins to introduce chapter 3, which discusses the different incarnations. So, so he's reclaiming the sadhus. This is why Krishna comes, to reclaim the sadhus. As we know this famous verse from the Gita, Paritranaya sadhunam, vinashyacha duskritam dharma samstarpanataya sambhavami yuge yuge. That Krishna comes specifically and most importantly to Paritranaya sadhunam, to deliver the sadhus. So this is Krishna's main purpose for incarnating himself and for sending his representatives. So the next 4 answers about the Purusha avatars, this will be explained in the second chapter also, verses 30, and then more so in the third chapter where the Purusha avatars are described, and we'll explain a little bit about that, who the Purusha avatars are. And the Leela avatars is explained in the first chapter, verse 18, but it's also explained in the entirety of the third chapter. It's asked in this first chapter verse. And where did religion take shelter post-Krishna? It took shelter, the Srimad Bhagavatam, and that is the verse that I read at the beginning, which is, this Bhagavad Purana is as brilliant as the sun, and it will give light in this age of Kali. So I hope everyone's still with me. No one's fallen off the wagon yet. Everyone's still buckled in. I know we're going really fast, but Hare Krishna. So the Purusha avatars are explained in this verse, and I'm just going to kind of explain a little bit. So you have the Purusha avatars with 3 main avatars. One is the Mahavishnu or Karanadakshayi Vishnu, and you can see here in this picture that he is being specifically empowered by Krishna, and he's lying on the causal ocean, and from his pores are emanating all the different universes. Then comes the Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, who is inside of one of the universes, and he lies down in the Garbhodak ocean, and in that ocean he is resting on Seshanag, on the bed. His feet are being rubbed by Lakshmi Devi, and from his navel is born Lord Brahma, who is the engineer of the entire universe. So this is Garbhodakshaya Vishnu. And the other Purusha avatar is Kshirodakshaya Vishnu, who is resting in the same way with Lakshmi Devi on Seshanag, and he is lying in the ocean of milk. And you can see that he's the personality that the demigods like Lord Brahma, Lord Indra, they all go to petition the Lord to help when there are larger problems in the universe that they can't handle. But Kshirodakshaya Vishnu also enters into every atom of matter and into the heart of every living entity as the super soul or the Paramatma. So these are the Purusha avatars. And the Purusha avatars are functioning a little bit like this. This is one of my favorite posters, and it's very small on your screen. Probably you can't see it all, but you can kind of look it up. But you can see here, this is Goloka Vrindavan. This is all Vaikuntha and the spiritual world. Here you have the different Vaikuntha personalities, Lakshmi, Narayan here. And you can see this is Ayodhya Dham, then there's Dwarka Dham, Mathura Dham, and Goloka Vrindavan Dham. So from here, we go into the Kailash, Aishwarya Dham, you have Krishna's Brahma Jyoti effulgence, and then you have the Karna ocean. And this is where Karanadakshaya Vishnu or Mahavishnu is lying in the causal ocean, and from his pores, these universes are being created. And inside of one universe, you have Lord Brahma, who is sprung from the navel of Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, and he has engineered and created the entire universe, which we are right here. You can see, you are here. That's us on planet Earth. In this big scheme of things, you know, we're just right here in the middle of some little planet, which is just one universe amongst millions and trillions of unlimited universes, many of which are actually much larger than our universe. And we're just little jiva on this big planet and one universe out of many, many millions of universes. So these are the Purusha avatars. Hopefully that's helped to explain a little bit. Then the question of the Leela avatars is explained in the entire third chapter. After the Purusha avatars, from text 6 to 28, is explaining all of the different Leelas. Usually I would read through each of them so we could talk about each of the different avatars, but we don't quite have time for that. So you can see this is a picture of the primary Das avatars. We often sing this song on their appearance days, the Das Avatar Stotra by Srila Jayadev Goswami. And these avatars take the form of Matsya, and you can always remember them because they go through like the development of consciousness, starting with a fish, then you go to the tortoise, then you go to the boar, Varaha, then you go to Nishringa, who's half man, half lion, then you go to Vamanadev, who's a dwarf, Parshuram, Lord Ram, Balaram, Buddha, and then Kalki. So these are the Das avatars, like that. So they're discussed in depth in the third chapter, which you all probably remember. So then the last question is, where did religion take shelter after the departure of Lord Krishna? And the answer is the Srimad Bhagavatam. So now I would like to give all of you a very special darshan now of something that you may or may not be able to appreciate. But I think it's a clear sign of how this is so true, that religion took shelter of the Bhagavatam. Because Srila Prabhupada started translating the Srimad Bhagavatam in India, in the Radha Damodar temple in Vrindavan. And he was working so diligently to complete this first canto. It took him several years to do so. He was engaged in so many different activities in order to manifest this and make it happen. Then, finally, Srila Prabhupada decided to leave India and come to the West, simply on the order of his spiritual master, to share the message of the Srimad Bhagavatam with the world. feeling that I have completed this first canto and I've given everything that I possibly can from all the acharyas in this first canto to share with the world. He had 100 copies, as far as I'm aware. He had them packed in a trunk. They were loaded on the Jaladuta, and Srila Prabhupada himself was on the Jaladuta. All he had was like a bag of puffed rice, a change of clothes, and an umbrella, and about something like 42 rupees, something like that. That's all he had for his own person, and this box of books. The Srimad Bhagavatam in 3 volumes and 100 copies of 3 volumes, so 300 books. I have here 2 of those volumes. These are actually 2 of the books that were on the Jaladuta with Srila Prabhupada, and they came to the West and they brought light to all of us. This is the proof that the Srimad Bhagavatam is the place where Krishna has gone in the age of Kali, and that Srila Prabhupada is the empowered personality to distribute that light to the entire world. So I have the part 1 and part 2, volume 1 and volume 2. If anyone knows where I can get volume 3, I would be very happy. But for now, we have this, so you can all put your heads to the screen and take the mercy that these books traveled. Whoop, they're disappearing here. Can't get too close, I guess. That they traveled with Srila Prabhupada to the West and were the first books to enter the Western world. So very nice. Okay, we're on to part B, and we've got 20 minutes. So excited. Hopefully everyone is very excited. All right, so after these initial questions, then Shaunaka Rishi, he requests Sutta Goswami to please speak more about Srila Vyasadeva and also about Shukadev Goswami and the famous conversation with Parikshit. So Shaunaka Rishi, he begins to inquire from Sutta Goswami, and Sutta Goswami starts to explain by introducing Srila Veda Vyas, otherwise known as Srila Vyasadeva. And although this chapter 4, is actually entitled The Appearance of Narada, more information is actually given about Srila Vyasadeva and his circumstance, which invoked Narada Muni's appearance in Srila Vyasadeva's hermitage. Vyasadeva was the son of Parshuram Muni and Satyavati, who was the daughter of Satyavati. Foreseeing the trouble at the end of Kali, he divided the Veda into 4 so that the divisions of society could easily access and be purified within their occupations. He also compiled the Puranas and the Itihasas, which are the histories like the Mahabharata, but he was still feeling very incomplete. He did all of this work and still he was feeling incomplete. And so we see that Srila Vyasadeva became an empowered incarnation and was trying so hard to serve and please, yet he was discontent. What to speak of us? So if you're ever doing lots of service and you think, I still don't feel like I've done enough, then you can understand how Srila Vyasadeva must have felt. So from this chapter, we can see, I'm not going to read through all of this, but it's basically what I just said. So then from this mood of desperation, which is, I think, a very important thing for us to understand, that sometimes in our spiritual life, when we become desperate, when we really, really have to reach out, then Krishna works his most amazing magic. And he works that amazing magic by sending the spiritual master. So then there is a conversation that happens in the 4th chapter between Srila Narada Muni and Srila Vyasadeva. So we start to introduce Narada Muni then in the 5th chapter. And Narada immediately but respectfully questions and clarifies with Srila Vyasadeva that it is not due to a lack of knowledge that is why you're despondent. And he addresses him. Actually, Narada Muni calls Srila Vyasadeva Prabhu, which I think is just so wonderful, because even though he's his guru, he is still addressing his disciple as Prabhu. He's humbly, calling him master. And then he asks him, what do you think, Srila Vyasadeva? Now, these points are very important. And if we were having a regular class, I would really open this up for us to dialogue and try to understand. But we see here the conversation. Srila Narada said, you have not actually broadcast the sublime and spotless glories of the personality of Godhead. That philosophy which does not satisfy the transcendental senses of the Lord is considered worthless. So it's very, very tactful and tactical what Narada Muni does. He engages Srila Vyasadeva to speak and speak and speak, and he listens, and then after he's done, he starts to speak and explain to him, this is the situation. That those words which don't describe the glories of the Lord, who can sanctify the whole universe, they're considered by saintly persons to be like a place of pilgrimage for crows. And since all perfect persons are inhabitants of the transcendental abode, they don't get any pleasure from a place that is like a garbage heap, which means there's no pleasure in reading or hearing the pastimes of whatever famous people are out there. The most famous person is where we're going to get that transcendental nectar. And then he says, on the other hand, that literature which is full of those descriptions of the Supreme Lord, that is directed toward bringing about a revolution in the impious lives of this world's misdirected civilization. And such transcendental literature, even though imperfectly composed, are heard, sung, and accepted by purified men who are thoroughly honest. This is such a famous verse from the Bhagavatam. Again, if you can, learn it, study it, read it. This is 1.5.10 of the Bhagavatam. Such an important verse. And also Srila Prabhupada quotes this in his preface. Now, why the Srimad Bhagavatam? Because the Srimad Bhagavatam is the topmost theological science, and it can react on the layman. Now, I don't know about any of you, but I'm certainly layman or below layman. Nothing prestigious about me in any way, shape, or form. And it gives medicinal doses for those of us who are just can't understand such super high philosophical treatises like the Vedanta Sutra and the Vedas themselves, because it contains transcendental activities of the Lord. So there is no difference, and this is really important, there is no difference between the Lord himself and the Srimad Bhagavatam. So the next time you pick up your Srimad Bhagavatam, the next time you pick up the book, you should understand you are holding God in your hands. When you open and start to read, you are hearing directly from God. The books are worshipable. You can offer diya, you can offer incense, you can offer flowers, you can offer, whatever to the books, because they are non-different from Krishna. It is factually a literary incarnation of the Lord. And so that laymen can hear the narrations of the activities of God, then they're able to associate with the Lord, and thus gradually they become purified from material diseases. The expert devotees also can discover novel ways and means to convert the non-devotees in terms of particular time and circumstance. Now, in this purport, Srila Prabhupada gives some amazing insight into how we can have dynamic outreach and preaching. He explains that devotional service is dynamic activity, and the expert devotees can find out competent means to inject it into the dull brains of the materialistic population. This is just so brilliant. Such transcendental activities of the devotees for the service of the Lord can bring a new order of life to the foolish society of materialistic men. Then he says that Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his subsequent followers, that's all of you, by the way, exhibited expert dexterity in this connection. Just look at the language with which this is written. Prabhupada is writing so well the English language. By following the same method, one can bring the materialistic men of this age of quarrel into order for peaceful life and transcendental realization. And didn't Srila Prabhupada do that? All over the world. In 12 years, he circled the globe 14 times, opened over 108 temples all over the world, and transformed the lives of millions of people. And it's still going on to this day, even more than it was when Srila Prabhupada was personally present. That is such a testimony of the greatness of the Srimad Bhagavatam and the greatness of Srila Prabhupada. In the early chapters, actually it's in the first chapter of the Bhagavatam, it's explained in one of the verses there that there are two types of Bhagavat, the person Bhagavat and the book Bhagavat. And the person Bhagavat is that person who is so absorbed in the book Bhagavat that whatever he does is an emanation of the book. And the book is non-different from Bhagavan, from God. So you have the book Bhagavat and you have the person Bhagavat. And both of those are personified through Srila Prabhupada. So that fifth chapter then starts to tell more of the story of Narada Muni, which is so beautiful, and I would really just love to read that all the way through with all of you. It's basically text 23 up until text 40. But the essence of that is that Narada Muni, he was just a young boy, and his mother was like a maidservant, and they lived in a small hermitage, kind of under a man who was, he wasn't a sadhu, but he was a very pious person. And so he therefore invited the Bhakti Vedantas to come and stay with him. And he requested that his maidservant lady serve them, cook for them, take care of them. And of course, this was during the months of Chaturmasya. And so it was very simple, but Narada Muni at that time was fortunate enough to get the opportunity to associate with and hear from them. And he started to develop a taste for hearing. In fact, he was liking it so much that he was praying to his mom, please, please let me just go and listen. Let me go and hear. And she was taking up more service and allowing him to not do certain services just so he could hear from these sadhus. And then one day he requested them, after they took prasad, please, can I take the remnants of your prasad? And it's described by the acharyas that simply by taking the remnants of those great sages, those Bhaktivedantas, those sadhus, he became Narada Muni. So by that hearing process, he developed taste. With that taste, his faith increased. By taking the remnants of those great souls, he became Narada Muni. And that is a testimony for all of us that we can also follow in the footsteps of Narada Muni in such a way that we can also perfect our lives and uncover our eternal relationship with Krishna. We may not become Narada Muni, but we all have a specific role to play in the eternal Leela of the Lord in the spiritual world. So towards the end of this chapter, there are some really wonderful quotes that I wanted to share, just because I think it's important that we get these. Oh, they should have come up one at a time. Unfortunately, they didn't. Sorry about that. So this is about how and why to engage in outreach. So Prabhupada talks a lot about how our Lakshmi, our money, our income should be properly spent and invested. So Srila Prabhupada explains that a major portion of our monetary income, he says not less than 50%, must be spent to carry out the order of Lord Krishna. Not only should we give the profit of our earning to this cause, but we must also arrange to preach this cult of devotion to others, because that is also one of the orders of the Lord. So he goes on to repeat that again. You can see this wonderful section. This is 1536, where he's again and again encouraging that we should do singing, dancing, and Prabhupada says, and refreshment. I think it's great. So singing, dancing, and refreshments. Never forget the refreshments, because the way to a man's heart is through his belly, yes, through the stomach. So if we can please the tongue by distributing nice refreshments, so we have to make sure there's always good prasadam. So like that. So Prabhupada says here, as it is taught by Lord Chaitanya, there is absolute certainty of converting this hell of pandemonium to the transcendental abode of the Lord. No one will disagree to partake in a function where good singing, dancing, and refreshment are administered. So this is like Srila Prabhupada's key. There has to be chanting, dancing, and prasadam. So like that. And then this very important point also. There is no need to change what you're doing. Prabhupada says in this purport to text 36 of the 5th chapter, one can remain in his own position. No one has to change his position, especially to variegated difficulties. The only condition is that one must give up the habit of dry speculation aimed at becoming one with the Lord. So he makes it very simple. Just give up impersonalism. And after giving up such lofty, puffed up vanities, one may very submissively receive the orders of the Lord in the Bhagavad Gita or the Bhagavatam from the lips of a bona fide devotee whose qualification is mentioned above. That will make everything successful without a doubt. So there's no need to change necessarily what you were doing. Srila Prabhupada, I've always been inspired by this conversation. He was having a conversation with his disciples, and he was asking them, what is it that is most important in people's lives? So they started to name different things. One person said money, and Srila Prabhupada said the value of money is 0. And then someone said family, and Prabhupada said the value of family is 0. Someone said education, Prabhupada, and Prabhupada said the value of education is 0. Someone said good job, Prabhupada said 0. Someone said strength, Prabhupada said 0. He just kept going on 0, 0, 0. And Prabhupada said, if you add up all of these zeros, what is the value of so many zeros? And they all said 0. And Prabhupada said, yes. He said, if I give you a check with 10 zeros on it, will you be happy? And the devotee said, no, because it doesn't add up to anything other than 0. And Prabhupada said, exactly. He said, but if you put a 1, just a 1, in front of all of those 10 zeros, every single 0 has value. So therefore, if we simply add the 1, Krishna, to our activities in life, all of those activities have immense value. Family, fame, fortune, intelligence, all of these things only have value if they are connected with the 1. And who is that 1? That 1 is Krishna. So we simply have to add Krishna. So after this, the disciple Srila Vyasadeva begins to inquire from Narada Muni, his spiritual master, and this is a very essential factor that we must learn how to inquire, how to humbly approach Tadvidi prani patena pariprashnena sevya upadekshanti te gyanam gyaninas tattva darshana. We have to approach the spiritual master with straw in our teeth, with folded palms, and make an inquiry as if we are simply a fool. Then we can learn. So this is how chapter 6 will begin. I think I have thus finished with 1 minute to go. So I will stop here. I thank you very much for your kind attention. I beg forgiveness for rushing through. I hope something that I said along the way made sense and you feel like, oh yeah, I remember all those little bits, and probably a lot more because there's so much more in these chapters. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much for that summary. I appreciate how hard it must have been to condense everything into 1 hour. So thank you so much for taking the time to do that. Does anyone have any quick questions at all?
Hare Krishna, I have one question. That was really nice, Prabhu. Thank you for that. In chapter 2, it talks about the 22 avatars. And I just wanted to ask, is it Shukadev Goswami that speaks them, or is it Sutta Goswami?
Yes, thank you. So I think that's chapter 3, or maybe, yeah, I think chapter 3 speaks about the different avatars, correct?
Sorry, yeah, chapter 3. Sorry, yeah.
So, these first chapters are all being spoken by Sutta Goswami. In fact, I think I would need to double check this, but I think much of the first 3 chapters are primarily even explained by Srila Vyasadeva. So Sutta Goswami is doing all the talking more or less up until the second canto. It's only the beginning of the second canto that Shukadev Goswami actually first speaks. So like that.
Okay, so my fault. So Prabhu, you know, the 22 avatars, are they spoken by Sutta Goswami or Shukadev Goswami? I thought it was Sutta Goswami.
Be Sutta Goswami, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, Hare Krishna. Thank you.
I think Satyajit Prabhu, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Hare Bol. Thank you, Prabhuji, for the very nice class. Prabhuji, I have a bit confusion about Chiro Dakshai Vishnu.
Yes.
Like Mahavishnu is lying in the casual ocean.
Causal ocean, not casual, but causal.
Yeah, causal, yeah. Sorry, Prabhuji. And Garbho Dakshai Vishnu lies at the bottom of every universe in
the Garbho.
Yeah, Garbho Dakshai Garbha ocean. And Chiro Dakshai Vishnu lies in the ocean of milk.
Yes,
so
sir.
does this ocean of milk is present above the Garbho ocean, or is it in the quite?
Very good question. So in every universe, there are planets. As we saw in that one slide that I showed, there are 14 planetary systems within the universal structure. So apart from those, there is a planet known as Shweta Dweep. And on that planet, Shweta Dweep, within this universe, that is where Kshirodakshai Vishnu resides, and he resides in the milk ocean. So on that planet, there is an ocean of milk, and he is residing on that ocean of milk. I don't know where you went. You disappeared, and oh, there you are. So Shira, like Kir, Kshirodakshai Vishnu has his own planet in this material universe, but it is not a material planet. It is a planet within this universe.
Okay.
And on that milk ocean.
So it's like Vaikuntha inside material universes, something like that.
Yes, sir, exactly. Very nicely put, yes.
Okay. Got it, Prabhuji. So it is away from Garbha ocean. Very different. It is different from Garbha ocean.
Well, the Garbo Ocean is in the bottom of the universe, right?
Bottom of the universe, yeah, bottom, yeah.
That's where the Lord is lying. And from the navel of the Lord sprouts the lotus on which Lord Brahma is resting. Yes?
Yeah, yeah.
Ocean is at the bottom. Lord Brahma is up at the top. And all the planets are in the stem of the lotus. Okay? That's the planetary system. But Shirodakshaya Vishnu's planet sits separately from those planets, but it's still in the universe, but the Garbhodak Ocean is still down at the bottom. Lord Brahma's planet is at the top. All the other planets are in the middle, but this planet sits kind of separately. I don't know if that makes any sense, but that's the way it's
What,
described.
Prabhuji? Yeah. Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you very much, Prabhuji. Thank you very much. Hari Bol, Prabhuji.
Madan Prabhu, oh, best of the Hare Krishna runners. Nice to see you.
Good to see you, Hare Krishna Prabhu. It was absolutely amazing to hear you make it such a compactful and impactful. So my question was more around the process of inquiry, and at least some of us, or at least me, are going this path of the learning the Bhagavatam. We are pretty much at the early stages, and what I would be very curious to know is that, and you have also mentioned that it's quite complex to really read it because of the chronological sequence and conversations happening at between very different devotees, etc. So what would you recommend for someone like ourselves who really are starting on this path to really look at what would be the 2 or 3 things that we have to keep in mind? So one is, of course, to do this together, because I see so much value in coming together in a sangha and learning together rather than doing it on my own. But if I were to read on my own, how do I really unpack and try to pick up the essence of the philosophy rather than just getting a bit too overwhelmed by the details, if that makes sense?
It does. It makes a lot of sense. So what I would suggest, because like many things, or rather like almost anything, when we first start, it's always difficult. There's always challenges. If you start a new job, you start a new course, you start running, you start learn a new language. In the beginning, everything is difficult. So you always need a teacher. That's important. So it's good to find a teacher, listen, and we're so fortunate in the age that we live in the sense that you can go and find a teacher on the internet, anywhere, in the sense that you can hear from great personalities. ISKCON Desire Tree has lecture after lecture after lecture. We can attend classes online, every morning. If you go to Mayapur TV, there's so many different lectures and classes. So many of Srila Prabhupada's disciples have written books and study guides that can help us to understand as we go through the books. And more important, as you mentioned, is when we come together like this in Sangha and we hear and we discuss, we learn so much. But what we have to remember is you will not encompass or understand everything in one reading, in one sitting, in one session. Even it's like the more you read, the more the layers peel away, and the more you realize, wow, oh my God, that was there. At the moment, the group that we read 4 pages a day, we just started the Krishna book, and I've read Krishna book probably at least 2 or 3 times. And as I'm reading it this time, every day I'm writing a realization. I'm like, I don't remember that. Where did that come from? I can't believe that part. And doesn't that make a lot of sense? And isn't that amazing? So it's like if you have a partner, and if you want to fall deeper and deeper in love with someone, you have to find out more and newer things about them. And there's always newer and interesting things to find out. We just have to be eager to seek it out. So as you're reading, I would say don't get discouraged. Don't get hung up. We can try to study. The first thing that I did was there was a quote from Srila Prabhupada where he said that we should study his books like a lawyer, like a solicitor studies the law books. We should know his books like a solicitor or a lawyer knows the law books. And so when I was first reading Srila Prabhupada's books, I took that quote so seriously that I used to sit and read minimum for 1 hour a day. And I had notebooks full of notes. And anytime Prabhupada would reference another book, I would go to that book, I would look it up, I would read the verse, read the purport, go. And if he referenced from that purport, I would go to another one. And I would just be like overwhelmed. But then after, I think I'd been living in the ashram for, at that point, 7 years, and I was only on the 9th canto. And when I interacted with one senior devotee, he asked me, how many times have you read the Bhagavatam from beginning to end? And I said, I'm still in the 9th canto. And he said, you've been around for 7 years. What the heck have you been doing? And I said, I've been studying. And I showed him my notebooks. And he was like, okay, that's good, but you should just read it all the way through, then study. So just read. And if you get held up and you didn't get it, don't worry, just keep going. Or make a note, make a question, try to ask it the next time you're with a sadhu, the next time you're with a devotee, but don't get hung up, just read. Because no matter how little or how much you read, we're in Kali Yuga. Within a day or two, we probably will forget a lot of it anyway. We forget so much more than we remember. So don't get hung up. Don't get, caught up. I don't get that. I don't get that. It's okay. Just relax. Just read. Even hearing the Bhagavatam, hearing the Gita, hearing transcendental knowledge. When I used in India, I would stay in Govardhan, and in the mornings for Bhagavatam class, the devotees would give class in Hindi. And I don't speak Hindi, but I would sit through the entire Bhagavatam class and just hear, because Srila Prabhupada said, even if you don't understand the language, you still get benefited. So we should just read. I hope that answers your question, Prabhu. And so just carry on. Charu Gupta, Prabhu, you have your hand raised, I think.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Tandur Pranam.
Hare
I was attending for the first time today, and it was really wonderful.
Thank you.
And what, I don't know, but this particular part of what were the questions asked by the sages and answered by Sutta Goswami, I don't know, means I have at least read about it so many times, but still I forget it.
Don't worry, Mother. I also forget. If I don't go back and look at that slide now, I probably couldn't give you all the exact answers and questions. And even after teaching it so many times, like I said, we're in Kali Yuga. We have to accept that we will forget more than we will remember. And that's why every day we have to keep reminding ourselves of Krishna. We have to keep chanting the holy names, cleaning the dust off the mirror. It's like cleaning. You can clean your entire house so nice from top to bottom, and the next day when you wake up, the dust is back again, So it's like that. So you just keep going, don't worry, but take time. If there's something specific that you really want to remember, then you should take time to try to memorize it. And you can do that so wonderfully. Shlokas, you can put shlokas on little cards. I used to put them on little note cards, post them around the house, while you're brushing your teeth, while you're doing whatever you do, getting ready for work, you just look at the card. Then while you're driving in the car, don't look at the card, but you can try to remember the verse and like that. So, just try to engage your memory and intelligence as much as possible in learning shlokas, or learning passages, or go back over those 6 questions and just memorize it. I'm sure there are things that you memorized in life, so you may have to just mechanically imprint the information into your mind. I mean, I still remember verses that I learned 23 years ago in the first Bhakta program that I did. They're the strongest verses that I remember. So it's really good to learn shlokas, Charu.
Yeah, and also Prabhuji, I always get confused in the same thing that Shirodakshai, Garbhodakshai, and Mahavishnu, like which is where. But I think so. It was explained very well today. Hopefully, I will try to remember it that way.
Yeah, no problem. And just keep listening to more lectures. Listen to classes, listen to things, and you'll hear it again and again, and eventually you'll just be able to repeat it. And then there'll be a whole list of new things that you can't remember. So,
And Prabhuji, like I was hearing that Bhakti Vaibhav is going to start soon.
Bhakti Vaibhav, is that what you said?
Yeah, yes, Prabhuji.
Yes, I'm not 100% sure about that. You would need to check probably the Manor website, School of Bhakti, like that. I'm not 100% sure about that. So maybe check with other places. Maybe one of the leaders on this call can inform the group with that information of the formal study of the Bhagavatam. So like that.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mother. I think a few other, about 5 hands raised now. Everyone's getting excited. So I think we're gonna go to the next person, Ayas Mitakar. Oh, okay, they disappeared.
Hi, sorry, Hare Krishna. This was my first session. I'm just getting introduced to this, and I think, yeah, the experience so far has been really transformative in whatever little ways I've been able to pick up, and I believe that it's just Krishna's blessings that are with me, that I'm being introduced to these beautifully, intellectually, extremely enriching ideas and thoughts. So I just want to extend my gratitude to you, to everybody who's associated with this. And I just want to say thank you for enlightening me with the things that you have spoken today. It's given me a lot to reflect about. I'm just reading the Bhagavad Gita now. Just started doing that. I'm in the second chapter, in the middle of the second chapter. I've always been very drawn towards Krishna, especially the last few months, probably like a year, but this is the first time I'm doing like systematic study of things. So that's been really enlightening and encouraging in so many ways. I just wanted to extend my gratitude. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much. It's so inspiring when you hear that someone is taking up this. It's transformational. This is really life transformational work that you're doing. And
Absolutely.
I encourage you enough. Is that how you pronounce your name, Ayushmitakar?
Yes, I'm actually from Bengal, so it's Oyushmita.
Okay.
But it's fine. It's just a name. It's all right.
Ayushmita. Thank you so much. Keep going.
Yes, with your blessings, with everybody's blessings, I hope I can continue on this journey.
In a couple of years, you'll be doing what I'm doing today. So I'll be.
I hope Krishna guides me.
Okay, Arun.
Hi, Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, Prabhu. As Ayosmita said, I am also a newcomer and very excited to join this this webinar. And thank you very much for giving this opportunity to people like us who has moved to this country probably 20, 25 years ago, and keen to learn more about Bhagavad Gita because we have heard about it, but never really looked into it. So this is a good forum. So there are 2 questions from my end. Where can I get the book that you are referring to? That's number 1. And is there any reason we are calling it as a Bhagavatam rather than, because I've heard the name Bhagavad Gita since I was a kid. So those are the 2 questions I wanted to ask. Hare Krishna,
Perfect.
thank you.
Thank you for coming on. I saw your question pop up in the chat, and I was hoping to get a chance to answer that. Yes. So that is one of the things that can be very confusing. It also confused me in the beginning that we hear Bhagavad Gita, and then all of a sudden someone starts saying Bhagavatam, and you think it's the same thing. They're different books. So the Srimad Bhagavad Gita, this is the Song of God. So this is Krishna's direct speaking, and this is on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, and a conversation between Krishna and Arjuna. That is the Bhagavad Gita, the Song of God. The Bhagavatam, Srimad Bhagavatam, is the story of the life of Krishna and Krishna's devotees. So this is kind of, the Srila Prabhupada used to say the Bhagavad Gita is the preliminary study of spiritual life, and the Bhagavatam is the postgraduate study. And then there's a book after this known as the Chaitanya Charitamrita, which is the PhD of spiritual life. So the Bhagavatam is a different book, but as you read the Bhagavatam, especially the first canto, there's much of the first canto, and you'll start to get into it probably from around chapter 7. So a couple more chapters, which up until the end of the first canto is almost a lot of the Mahabharata and the Bhagavad Gita are included in this beginning section of the Bhagavatam. But the Bhagavatam has another 11 cantos, another 11 volumes, which are just so much more than the Bhagavad Gita. So first and foremost, there are two different books. So just so that's clear. Where you can get the book, I'll ask the devotees who are overseeing things here, Mr. SB3 and Rohana. So if they can arrange maybe on the chat or somehow to be in touch with you, we can always send you a book. You can also find the books on, I think it's vedabase.com, iBooks. I have all the books myself now, and on my iBooks. And I like it because I can make lots of comments. I can mark things. I can keep notes. So I really like to study like that. So I encourage you to do that. And someone will hopefully be in touch with you, Arun, to help you get a copy of the book. Yes?
Yeah, sorry. Yes. Thank you very much for that clarification, because I've heard about Bhagavatam first time. So yeah, Hare Krishna. Yeah.
Sir, thank you.
Hare Krishna.
You have another question?
I've got a question for you, Prabhu. It's Meena here.
Hey, Meena.
So obviously you just talked about the two different books, the Bhagavad Gita and the Bhagavad Purana. Is it better to first read the Bhagavad Gita and then move on to the Bhagavad Purana? The reason why I ask is I've actually read the Gita. I haven't sort of done it in a Sangha, but I'm actually going to do the actual Bhagavatam course. So it starts, I think, next weekend with the manna. And I just wanted to see what your take on that was.
Yeah, like we had the one slide that said it's like sugar candy. Wherever you bite into it, it's sweet. So it's no problem. Probably what you will find is that knowledge from the Bhagavad Gita will certainly be beneficial to have when you're going through the Bhagavatam. But I guess you could understand also that all the knowledge and wisdom that's there in the Bhagavad Gita will be covered and then some in the Bhagavatam. So like that, it's okay to go ahead and get into the Bhagavatam. Although if the systematic study, which is Bhakti Vaibhav, I thought that usually a prerequisite for Bhakti Vaibhav was that you had to do Bhakti Shastri. And Bhakti Shastri means that you would study the Bhagavad Gita, the Nectar of Devotion, the Nectar of Instruction, and the Sri Upanishad. So usually there's a prerequisite before going to Bhakti Vaibhava, which is that you would do these other 4 preliminary books. But I'm not sure which course you're talking about specifically, and I'm not registering people for the course, but I know for myself, that's what I've understood anyway. So
Thank you.
it's sort of like going for postgraduate, you usually would have done the graduate, so like
Yeah.
that.
Okay, that's good to know. Thank you.
But if they allow you to join without that, then it's still fine. It's okay, no problem, and I would still encourage you to go ahead and do it.
Okay.
I'll give you an example. My wife and I teach Bhakti Shastri. There was one lady who came to do the Bhakti Shastri course with us, and she'd already been a devotee for over 25 years. She said, I just thought I'd try the course. I've been reading Prabhupada's books for 25 years. After the first 2 weeks, she was so overwhelmed. She said, I've never read Prabhupada's books like this. And so she did the Bhakti Shastri course all the way through 1 month. It takes a whole year, every Sunday for 3 hours. She did the course. The next year she signed up again, and she did the Bhakti Shastri course again. And I was like, she said, I loved it so much. I just have to do it again because I know I forgot more than I remembered. And she did it again.
Yeah.
And at the end of the second year, I was talking with her and she said, I learned so much. She signed up again for the 3rd year. So in that way, it's not that just by doing it once, you're going to get everything anyhow. So just dive in wherever you can find a pool of the nectar and just swim around and absorb yourself in it if they'll allow you, I think. Does that make sense, Meena?
Absolutely. Excellent. Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you.
Wish you the best. So I think, Anita, you didn't come on last time. Do you have a question?
Yeah, Hare Krishna, Prabhu. I've got a question. Chapter Canto 1, Chapter 3, it talks about Srila Jiva Goswami's statement, and it talks about the Swayam Rupa and Swayam Prakasha. I just wondered, is there like a separate supplement that expands on these portions? Because I thought it seems like there's more to read on those sides, on that side of it. Is there extra supplement statements?
You'll get completely bewildered by all the understandings of the different incarnations. The book that I would recommend for that is Chaitanya Charitamrita. It's explained in much depth, and I think it's in the conversation with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Rupa Goswami or Sanatan Goswami. I can't remember. It might be Sanatan Goswami. And he explains all of this in depth with all the incarnations. So that's in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. But if you continue to read the Bhagavatam.
No, sorry. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, but if you continue to read the Bhagavatam, Srila Prabhupada will also touch on all of these points.
Okay. Hare Krishna.
But the Chaitanya Charitamrita describes it in exact order and specific. I can try to find out where that is exactly and share it with the devotees. They can share it with you. Okay, we're getting a bit late now. We'll stop with Ashok, but we have Janukanya.
Hare Krishna. I just want to share a voice of gratitude because I've been overwhelmed with the volume of scriptures we need to go through, and I didn't know where to start, where to dip in and out. And I think you give us amazing bite-sized chunks to go by, which is enlightening and a very enchanting way actually to approach it in a good mood and just go for it and not ponder and think, oh, I'm afraid of going to read a book and not continue because you don't understand it. I don't understand it all the time, but when I do understand it, it's so sweet. And when it's so sweet, I want another taste of it, and I keep going. But I do forget, as everybody's saying. I'm such a big forgetful person because of my age. I think also it doesn't help. But I'm so I'm hungry for it all the time, and I want to go on and look into it. And you actually so inspiring, and you give me such enchanting mood to go forward.
Wow,
Thank you.
that's inspiring for me. Thank you very much, Janukanya. Please continue. Keep going. Keep going.
And one thing I would like to know, if how do we join this group? Is my first time as well, and
right.
and this is what I was looking for when I didn't think it existed. So, can I be included in your group when you do it again?
I hope so.
I just fell on this advertisement, and I thought I'm going to join it. So there you are. Krishna is sending me in a different path, obviously. Yeah.
So happy I was here for your first visit. I feel blessed. So hopefully Rohana and I just have to say SB3 will look after you and make sure you join up.
Thank you. I'm sorry to hold you back. I know it's late.
You're pushing me forward. I'm so happy. Ashok, please, you have some question?
Yes, Prabhuji, I have one question for you. It's multiple questions, but what it is you explain the different layers from the heavenly planets down.
Yes, sir.
Down, and with the scriptures, we are all striving to get liberated to go back up to the heavenly planets. Now, we are, all fallen souls come down to this planet. And when we've come down to this level of planet, in the fallen souls, we're all striving to go back up to the liberated planet. Now, how are we falling down again from this level? And if we're all trying to get liberated again, there's a chance we're going to get fallen again. What are we going to do when we get to heaven? What do we actually do when people get to heaven? And why are the people falling down? Are we fighting same thing in heaven as we are in here on earth to get fallen? Are we quarreling?
Okay, this is very, very powerful question. I wanted to, let me just see if I can do this again. Quickly share my screen. Okay. So, Ashok, you can see my screen?
No, I can't.
Oh, can anyone else see my screen?
Yeah, I can see now. Yeah, I can see the screen
Yeah.
now. Yeah.
Yes.
All right. So we're here, right? And also, Satyajit was asking earlier. This is Shiradakshai Vishnu's planet here. So anyway, we're here. This is the earthly planet, and you mentioned about the heavenly planets. So yes, many personalities are trying to get entry into the heavenly planets, but you're using a terminology of moksha or liberation. But liberation doesn't occur by going to the heavenly planets. So I hope that will make some sense, because the heavenly planets, and these are the hellish planets down below, all of these planets are in the material world. So they're all material. Liberation and or moksha occurs in different platforms, but it occurs when we go outside of, see this universe, that's where we just were, when we cross over into the Brahmajyoti, and when we head back to the spiritual world, back to Vaikuntha. So once we go to Vaikuntha, this is where we achieve what's known as real liberation, where we actually return to our original spiritual form in the spiritual world. And once we return back there, we do not fall down again. Krishna assures us of that in the Bhagavad Gita. He says, Jamma karma chame divyam evam yoveti tattvataha tyaktva deham punarjama naiti mam eti so Arjuna. One who understands the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities in this world, he returns to be with me and he never comes back again. So But if you desire to go to the heavenly planets, you can go there, but you will fall down from the heavenly planets because it's a material planet, and you go there with a certain number of credits on your credit card. And once you spend those credits, your good karma runs out, and you have to come back to the earthly planets to start to accrue karma again. So hopefully that makes a little bit of sense, but we're here. This is in the material universe. We're among unlimited material universes. We want to move out of this universe and go back to the spiritual world, which is Vaikuntha. The material world is only 1/4 or 25% of the entire creation. The other 75% is the spiritual world. So that's the situation. In a short answer, I think that's, with these pictures, that's probably the best way that I can explain it, Prabhu.
No, that was excellent. Thank you. But how did Jagai and Madai fall down then? Because they were cursed when they were in heavenly planets then?
Yeah, very good. So Jagai and Madai, they were Jai and Vijay from the spiritual, from the gates. They were gatekeepers to Vaikuntha. And the way that they fell down was because the Lord ordained it specifically for his Leela and for his pastimes. So like that, they were, you can say they were cursed, but it was only the four Kumars cursed them, but it was only Vishnu who allowed that curse to happen. Otherwise, his gatekeepers couldn't have just been cursed to come to the material world.
Sure. Thank you very
So
much.
it's called Leela.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ashoka. Wonderful
very lovely
question.
class as well. Brilliant class.
Thank you so much for your encouragement, Prabhu. I'm very grateful.
Hare
Thank you.
Krishna. Hare Krishna.